Sarah Wolman has been the head of the U.S. program for the Lego Foundation for a number of years now. Some of the hustle and bustle you have around is that you're getting little sets of Lego bricks, a variety of them. We're not going to tell you what they're for yet. Don't open the bags. Hold on. This is a moment of self-regulation. Good. So Sarah has been our lead funder for the Early Learning Fund, and one of the things that the Lego Foundation has been so wonderful about is advocating for many, many years about the concept of learning through play. So we've had a lot of opportunity to play this morning in our live learning sessions. You have fidgets and other playful items at your tables, and we all recognize that, particularly for attention regulation, these are things that are necessary. But there's so much more to the concept of learning through play, and it's not just for little kids. So I wanted to invite Sarah up to lead some adults through this.
Thank you. What an inspiring panel. I almost hated to have it end. I'm going to ask you to start this conversation by taking a second to remember how you played as a child. So turn to the person next to you and tell them how you played. This is going to be very short. I'd like to have one or two people share how they played. Who would like to share how you played as a child? Who would like to share? This is a nice, easy question. Nice and loud, please.
Here.
It's okay. Very, very briefly.
So we were both in households that we were required to stay outside a lot. So she made forts, and I thought I wanted to be a florist, so made floral arrangements out of the trees and the flowers.
Great. Anybody else make forts? Anybody in the living room with pillows and sheets? And okay. Any other floral arrangers? That's a first. Maybe you continue that skill into adulthood. Anybody else? How'd you play over here? Anybody over here?
No.
Baseball, softball, outdoor sports. Other baseball, softball players? Here, yeah, sort of sandlot. Anybody with a stick? Okay, great. One last one. How'd you play? Dress up. What was your favorite? You get to share with the whole group. Princess, warrior. I was always Princess Leia. There was we definitely all took turns who got to be Luke, who got to be Leia. Great. I'm going to share a little bit with you about how we think at the Lego Foundation. This is our mission at the Lego Foundation, and we think about what it would take to support children to become creative and engaged lifelong learners. And in the context of today's discussion, it's worth inserting the word all, right? How is it that every child has the opportunity to become a creative and engaged lifelong learner? So not surprisingly, we think a lot about the whole child. I think a lot of people in this room are already talking about social and emotional learning. They're talking about empathy, et cetera. There are a lot of frameworks out there for slicing these up. There's no sort of right or wrong. This is how we talk about it at the Lego Foundation, that if you're not hitting all of these areas of development for children, you're missing something. Children develop, these are highly integrated domains of development. We know that cognitive isn't over here, and then after lunch it's emotional, and then social at 4 o'clock. These are integrated aspects of children's lives. But if you're not hitting the development for children in all of these areas, they are missing out. So what I want to talk to you a little bit about is our thinking about one way to support development in this way. So the irony of standing up here and talking to you about play and the value of a particular kind of learning is not lost on me. So of course, we should do some playing. So let's start. If you know the answer, I'm going to ask you please to just listen. Let's start with a very quick quiz question. These are 2x4, what we would call standard Lego bricks, right? Regular Lego bricks. If you think there are more than 10 different combinations for putting these 6 bricks together, raise your hand. If you think there are more than 10 combinations for combining these 6 bricks, raise your hand. I'm pretty sure everybody's hand should be up, right? Okay. I hope this isn't like a math teacher group, because that'd be really scary. If you think there are more than 100 combinations, keep your hand up. Okay, keep your hand up if you think there are more than 1,000 combinations. More than 10,000. Keep your hand up if you think there are more than 100,000 combinations of these 6 bricks. Keep your hand up if you think there are 1 million or more combinations. Got a couple hands back there. Keep your hand up if you think there are 10 million combinations. That's a lot of combinations. Somebody had to sit there and do them all, right? Actually, it's we now have at the new Lego house in Denmark, we now have an opportunity for everybody to make their own version of these 6 bricks. This is a concept we talk about a lot at the Lego Foundation. The fact that there are 900 million different combinations for those 6 bricks, that is an unbelievable amount of opportunity. And I want to use this as an example with you for what we call the Lego idea. So this is not an idea that is, that is monopolized by Lego, of course. But one of the things that's unusual about Lego bricks is that when you put them together, they act like they're glued. And then you can evaluate and reflect on them, take them apart, and put them together in new ways. So whether you're talking about recycled materials, whether you're talking about a math problem, whether you're talking about a social interaction, this idea of acting and creating and evaluating and reflecting and then changing and iterating, we like to call this the Lego idea. So as Shruti mentioned, learning through play, that's really our thing. That's really what we're all about. To talk to you about what learning through play is, I'd like to ask you to participate in a little bit of learning through play. You have a bag in front of you, and when I say go, you're going to have 30 seconds to build a duck. So go ahead and open your bags. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And hold your duck up in the air. Hold them up. Take a look around. Those were 6 elements, all the different possibilities. Look around the table. What do you see? Fantastic. What do you notice about the ducks? They're all different, right? They're all different. Anybody find a partner? Sometimes you find one that's really similar. So in years of doing this exercise, I have yet, even with a group of 500 or 600 people, I have yet to find an exact pair. Do you see yours up there or something like yours? So what was going through your mind while you were building the duck? What was going through your mind? I just realized I can walk because I don't have to stay there. So what was going through your mind while you were building?
Focus on a specific feature of the duck.
Okay, so focusing on a specific feature. So did you see a duck this morning?
No, but I've seen them before.
Right, so you saw one a long time ago. So what is that? When you're trying to conjure up something from a long time ago in your mind? What kind of memory? Long-term memory. Great. Okay, what else was going through your mind while you were building? Anybody? Time pressure. Great. Okay, so a little performance anxiety at this table. Okay, good. Anything over here? What was going through your mind? Anybody?
I really, really wanted mine to have a bill and a tail, and I couldn't figure it out.
Okay, so a little problem solving over here. Right, what happened in the room? Quiet. Why? Right. Everybody was really focused on the task, right? So what skills were you using or developing while you were building the duck? Just toss them out. Executive function. Visualizing. Prioritization. Spatial reasoning. Hand-eye coordination. So that creativity, there are more skills than these, but these are the ones on my slide. I always get some great ones that aren't, so I'll modify. This was a 30-second exercise. This kind of experience, what we would call learning through play, are the experiences that activate the mind and the body, so what we would call like a hands-on, minds-on experience, and they give you the opportunity to develop skills across those domains. So the physical, cognitive, creative, social, and emotional domains that we talked about before, learning through play is one way to promote that skill development, right? So let's talk a little bit about each of these and what kind of research is out there. I don't think I'm convincing a lot of people in this room of the value of these different kinds of skill sets. But maybe think about this through a slightly different lens. What research are you using or pointing to? Or what research are your colleagues pointing to support the idea that active learning, hands-on, minds-on learning is great for kids? So hopefully I'll share this deck, so I'm not going to spend too much time on each study, but think about the tools that you have or that others have in your work to support the idea that learning can look very different from how it looked for us traditionally. So physical skills, this is children starting to get comfortable with their bodies in space. That's understanding movement. Some really interesting research correlating the relationship between spatial abilities and spatial reasoning in math is very, very well established. I don't have to tell that to this group. But how to develop those spatial abilities, there is no substitute for the hands-on experience. It's just not as effective to do, Minecraft as it is to build something with your hands. And it doesn't have to be Lego bricks. It can be anything that's physical. We know that the tactile plays a huge role in that physical development. Social skills, I heard a lot about social and emotional development this morning. We know that the communication, the sharing, the interaction is absolutely critical to the learning. We know that without that social interaction, the learning is not as deep, and the research is very strong on this as well. So it's a great reminder for us that it's not just about the reflection, it's not just about the share out, but it is about the collaboration. And again, this can mean it's a math problem where kids are working on it together. It can mean a math problem with more than one right answer. How is it that you get at the social experience, even if it's through a more traditional setup? The emotional side, this is really one of the areas where I think the results are the most profound. This first study really, really blew my mind. So this was a study that showed that if you looked at what predicted children's achievement in school, their own belief in how they could do in school was a better predictor than how they did the year before. So that's pretty powerful, right? If you think about what that means for teachers as they think about their role in supporting and scaffolding experiences for kids, if their confidence and their self-efficacy and their self-belief is actually more important than what they came in with, that's a pretty powerful mindset change for an adult, right? The other one I would mention here is the recognizing emotions and being able to articulate emotions. I know the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence is also one of the grantees of this group. Very interesting research coming out of there around early childhood settings, where, as we all know, teachers of children of all ages bring their own emotional experience into the classroom. We know that. They grade papers differently, they interact differently. What some of that research is showing that adults who recognize their own emotional state before they walk into the classroom bring that state less into the room. So they've got a very interesting grid where you sort of plot yourself on a grid of pleasantness and energy, sort of 4 quadrants, and then you name your emotional state. What they found is that those teachers were bringing their emotional state less into the room in a way that was negatively impacting kids. So that's pretty powerful stuff. Creativity, obviously, this is an important one to us. Most people here probably know a lot about divergent thinking and the Torrance test, one of the classic creativity tests. If I hold up this pen and I ask you to think of how many different uses you can think of for this object, generally over a lifetime, adults like us can come up with a couple of different uses, but if you ask a group of 4-year-olds, they all score off the charts as creative geniuses. So what is it that we are doing over the course of education that's essentially beating the creativity out of people? So we see that this huge decline in creativity over a lifetime. Simultaneously, we see a huge premium being placed on creativity. We know that the jobs that are going to be out there for our kids today, we can't even imagine what they will be. Learning to use an iPad or using to learn a particular program, these are not going to be relevant to them in 20 or 25 years. What's going to be relevant is for them to create the next technology, understand the next thing that has not come along yet. So divergent thinking, pretend play, openness, these are really highly linked to how kids do. It's also not the case, as some of us were taught, that creativity and imagination live on one side of the brain. This is I thought, kind of an interesting way of showing the imagination network. Imagination is everywhere. So the role play, dramatic play, absolutely outstanding at a very young age. But we see this for teenagers too. I worked with teenagers for many years. I would say if I could have said one thing that I thought really distinguished the kids who were going to be able to create a different kind of life trajectory for themselves, from those who weren't. It was their own ability to have some vision, not a specific goal, but they could imagine themselves having a life that was successful, or imagine themselves as professionals. And there's something to this. You know, we heard from Bob about the importance of pre-K. You know, role play is not just for 4-year-olds. Great for 4-year-olds, but it's not just for 4-year-olds. I spent many years doing mock trial experiences for teenagers, you know, putting them in the role of the judge, putting them in the role of the lawyer. There is something very powerful for young people about seeing themselves in a new way. So cognitive skills, obviously this is the one where you get, I think, the biggest bang for the budgetary buck when you try to make the argument for how learning through play can actually be a great approach to developing kids academically. We see great correlations with how kids do. I'll call out this third study because I think it's really powerful. This was a group of kids in New Zealand. Some were really struggling, a lot were from very, very high need backgrounds. 2 groups of kids were taught to read. One group was 5-year-olds and one group was 7-year-olds. By age 11, they had equal facility in reading. And the group that had started later, the group that started when they were 7, had better reading comprehension. So this idea that it's all about sort of drilling a very specific skill set as early as possible, certainly in the context of today's work, when we think about lots of different kinds of learners, not only is it not one size fits all, but the solution to, you know, our issues with how we do education, the solution is not to push it back earlier and keep doing what we're doing, but with younger and younger kids. A quick word on executive functioning. We had somebody over here who mentioned it. Very, very good data are really pointing to the connection between executive function and how kids do in general. We know that learning through play develops executive function. You know, everybody in this room, you're all different learners, you're all different styles. Some of you are visual, some of you are kinesthetic. You all focused on this task because it was engaging, it was interesting, it was fun, and you developed your own attention through it. So here's a fun little quiz. Does everybody know this? Okay, so I'm going to ask you, I don't have a pointer, so I'm just going to ask you to read the words from top to bottom all together. Ready? Go. Blue, black, orange, green, yellow, red. Now I want to ask you to tell me what color these are printed in from the top. Go.
Green, yellow, red, orange, black, blue.
Okay, so which was harder? The second one. Why was it harder? Because these are sight words for all of you, so you recognize the word right off the bat. So you have to suppress the desire to say blue, because that's what you instantly recognize, and you have to elevate identifying the color and say green. That's the best explanation I know of what executive function is. It's the air traffic controller of the brain. It's how we tell our brains, focus on this and not that. And for all kinds of learners, this is an absolutely essential element of their success. So we have some research that just came out. I brought a couple of copies of it if anybody wants to flip through it. We did a lot of research last year on the types of play that promote deeper learning. These are the characteristics of the types of play that promote deeper learning. Joyful, and that doesn't necessarily mean happy. It doesn't mean that kids are smiling all the time. It could be surprise, it could be wonder, it could be the unexpected. The reason joy is so powerful to learning is that it makes you want to come back, right? When kids have a positive experience, they want to keep doing it. And that's true for adults too. So joy is the first. Active engagement, you all showed that, I think, very clearly when you're immersed, engaged. You all know the concept of flow, right? When kids really get into the learning experience, you can see that active engagement. Meaning, does it feel like there's a purpose? I was in a classroom in India where 3-year-olds were copying English words from the blackboard. They didn't understand them, they couldn't read them, and they didn't know why they were doing it. They were copying at desks over and over again these English words, and their parents were really impressed that they could write the English words. A lack of meaning is also a lack of incentive and a lack of, as we heard earlier, intrinsic motivation. Iteration, this is where we come back to the Lego idea a little bit. How is it that we create iterative learning experiences for kids? It's not just enough to say, here's the problem and here's the solution. How do we get them to reflect and evaluate and find a new and better solution? So we had a great process of iteration during these 3 cumulative workshops today where people were building on what came last and yes and, thinking about how to tweak the idea before them. Iteration, we find the research is very, very strong connecting iteration to deeper learning. And finally, that social interaction. The research is very strong there too. Kids who interact with their peers learn more. They learn better, and they learn deeper. So we're working with all of these different research partners to develop these. Our next big piece of research is around play facilitation. What does it look like to facilitate a great learning experience for kids of all ages? And this has been a snapshot of what we're up to and what we're learning about, but I want to invite any of you, if you have further thoughts on this. This is a little bit of just an energizer break from the rest of the program, but I really do believe that there is a very strong connection between issues of equity and issues of innovation and quality. Our belief is that quality is equity. This is how you bring, and we're focused on this all over the world, this is how you bring equity, is that you bring quality. And for us, quality really means thinking about children's whole development across the domains. So thank you very much. The ducks are yours to take home. If anybody has another child at home or some other desperate need for a second duck, you can grab one on your way out. Thanks so much.